Oh, you know what? I'm still. All right, Jabbo, say good morning. Let us begin. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir, to thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Iyar Menachem and Susie Schoenfeld for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this month in memory of their grandparents, Moshe ben Shimon Lev Halevi, Sarah Leah Bas Dovber, Menachem Mendel ben Dovber, Sarah Yita Bas Yaakov Sender, Noach ben Avram, Fega Bas Meir, David Shimon ben Yisrael, and Sarah Bas Yaakov. To thank our sponsors for a day of learning, Dr. Paul and Rabbi Gila Ruskin, in memory of their grandparents. Our Daf Yomi sponsor today, Louis and Edie Goldberg, in honor of the entire Kehila, and Akiva and Hillary Kent in memory of Akiva's mother, Sipora Dvora Bas Yacha, the most dedicated and loving mother. May we all appreciate our own mothers on this Mother's Day and every day. Beautiful dedication. Listen, we hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah, the families in Nechama, and that indeed we all take a few moments to appreciate our mothers on this day. So with that, let us begin. So we have a beautiful daf ahead of us today. Today's daf is Samechei 65, and we are picking up on the top of Samechei Amud Aleph. 2 lines down, or second line I should say. Ubemoch Sheba Ozno. So if you remember again, the Mishnah spoke about the idea about a woman going ahead and going out into Rishus Harabim, or wearing on Shabbos with a piece of cotton. Right? So moch literally means a wad of cloth in her ear. So the Gemara says, Tanya Rabbi Yecheskel, Vahusha Kasher Ba'azna. This is presupposing that halacha lemaisa, the moch, the wad of material, is tied into her ear. Because otherwise, again, the concern would be that halacha lemaisa, it might go ahead and fall out and she may come to carry it. If it's tied, then again, there's no concern. Even if it falls out, she doesn't end up carrying it Daled Ames in Rishus Harabim. And similarly, the Gemara says, Shebisandala. So remember again, the Mishnah also said that halacha lemaisa, a woman could also go out with the moch in her shoe. Now Rashi points out over here, actually not yet, I'm sorry. So she can go out with the moch in her shoe. So Rashi pointed out that a woman would wear this, let's say if her shoes were uncomfortable for some reason, or she has some other kind of injury, although we'll discuss foot injuries in just a bit, but the idea being, when would she wear the moksha b'sandala, or how could she wear the moksha b'sandala? So the Gemara says, Tanya Rabbi Yecheskel, v'husha kashala b'sandala. Same idea. When could she go ahead and go out with this moch in her shoe, assuming that it is tied to her shoe? Because if it is tied to her shoe, then again, should it for some reason fall out, she will not come to go ahead and carry it in Rishus Harabim because it is tied into her shoe. Ubimoch sheskina la linidasa. And the next case the Mishnah brought down was a wad of material that she used when she was a nida. So essentially, this is a pad that a woman would use when she was menstruating. So the Mishnah says over here that halacha lamaisa, she is permitted to go out on Shabbos with a moch sheskina linidasa. So if she's wearing some type of pad to be able to go ahead and prevent the blood from flowing from her body and, let's say, dirtying her clothing, so she could go out with that on Shabbos into Rishus Harabim. So the Gemara says as follows. It's a very interesting discussion. Sava Rami Bar Chama Lemimar v'hu shekshurla bein yirako sel. Sar Bar Chama said, when is this so? This is so when the pad is somehow tied to her by her thighs. So just like we said before, that halacha lemaisa, she can go out with the wad of material in her ear, or ultimately in her shoe, but assuming that it is tied to her ear or to her shoe, so too again, when can she go out with this wad of absorbent cloth for her needles? Only if it's tied to her. Amar Rava, Rava says no. Afapi she'eno kasher. The truth is, when it comes to this pad, when it comes to this wad of cloth, to be able to absorb when she's menstruating, even if it's not tied to her body, she can still go out with it. Why? Kevan dima'is lo asya le'esuye. Because at the end of the day, since it's disgusting, she's not going to come to go ahead and carry it. In other words, what the Gemara is saying over here, what Rav is saying is like this. In the other cases, let's say the wad of material in her ear, or ultimately in her shoe. If for some reason that were to fall out of her hair or to fall out of her shoe, so Lamaisa, she may actually come to pick it up and carry it. But if we're talking about a pad that she's using when she's menstruating, if that were somehow to become detached from her body, because presumably it's going to be filled with blood, she's not going to pick it up and carry it. In other words, she would just leave it simply where it is. So because there's no concern that she's going to carry it, it need not be attached to her body like we require ultimately by the wad of cloth for her ear or by the wad of cloth in her shoe. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks following of Rabbi Abba. So listen to this. What happens if halacha lamaisa, she made a handle for this moch? She made a handle ultimately again for this wad of absorbent material. So now we'll say, so why do you look at Rashi for just a moment? Asisala beis yad, it's 3 lines down from the top in Rashi. Lemoch sheba osamakom. Mohu lemeisre dilma shakla umatma la biyadayim. Umatla biyadayim. Delo ma'is la'ochsa beis yad shela. So we'll say, what about the following case? Let's say she went ahead and she made a handle for this pad. So remember, we're still talking about the same case about a pad, a piece of cloth that is there to absorb when she's menstruating. So what we were saying until now is she can go out with that cloth on Shabbos even if it's not tied to her body. Why? Because we're not concerned that if it falls off her body, she's going to pick it up and carry it. Because since it's filled with blood, it's disgusting. She's not going to come to go ahead and carry it. Okay, so what happens, however, if she fashioned a handle for this moch? So therefore, again, technically speaking, you could handle it without what? Without touching the moch directly. So under those circumstances, would we have to be fearful that if it were to fall off her body, she would carry it, and because of that, the only way we should allow her to wear it out on Shabbos, how? Is if it's actually somehow attached to her body. Amar lei, mutter. So he said, ultimately, again, such a case is mutter. Now, what's the pshat? What's the pshat? So the Gemara says, look at Rashi. Asisa la beis yad mutter. The la amrina la ma'is, ala filu beis yad ma'is. So this is very interesting. Even halacha lamaisa, if this moch has a handle, it's still called disgusting. Or the assumption just is, a woman will keep it by her body, but once it falls off her body, if it falls to the ground, she's not picking that back up, right? Whether it has a handle or doesn't have a handle, once it fell off, she's leaving it off. She's not going to pick it back up. So therefore, halacha lemaisa, what the Gemara says is like this. So therefore, either way, even whether it has a handle or doesn't have a handle, she's allowed to wear it out. Because they will say, what's the concern? The concern with allowing a person, again, this case happens obviously to be unique to a woman, but the previous 2 cases with the moch sheba ozna, the material in the air, or the material in one's shoe, that's men and women. The idea is, in general, we don't want you wearing things out into the Rishus Harabim where there's a concern that it could fall off, you're going to pick it up, and may inadvertently come to carry it. What the Gemara is suggesting over here is that by the wad of material, essentially used by a woman as a pad, if that falls off her body, she's not going to pick it up and carry it. It's just not the derech to do so, because presumably it would be filled with blood, even if it has a handle, so she doesn't have to touch the pad directly. Just the mitzias is, she's not going to pick it up and take it with her. Therefore, halacha l'maisa, even if it has a handle, we're not concerned that she's going to come to pick it up and come to carry it, and therefore she can wear it out even if it's not attached to her body. Itmar nami amrav dacha bra ushia amrav yochanan asasala beis yad mutter. Therefore, again, both say Rav Nachman sitting Rav Oshia, name Rav Yochanan, even if she made a handle for the pad, ultimately, again, it is mutter for her to go ahead and wear it out on Shabbos, even if it's not attached to her body. Rabbi Yochanan nafik behula be midrasha. Rabbi Yochanan ultimately went ahead one time, went to the base medrash. Rashi points out b'moch sheba ozno shahaya zaken v'haisalot soas ha'oze meruba. So interestingly enough, we'll say, so apparently, this notion, by the way, of wearing like cotton in the ear, is not such an old thing. I remember my grandmother, Zichron Livracha, told me that when she was growing up in Europe and someone had an ear infection, we didn't have antibiotics, so they would put cotton in the ear. they would pack the ear with cotton. Again, I don't know if that has medicinal value or not, but the Maisa, they pack the ear with cotton. I see Dr. Gladstein shaking his head no. Right? No medicinal good. So, but whatever it is, maybe it alleviated pressure, whatever it is, they packed cotton in the ear. So here you have a case, this is a little bit different. Rabbi Yochanan went to the Beis Medrash on Shabbos, and he had cotton packed in his ear. Now Rashi says he had excessive earwax. So apparently, again, there were times, I guess, where the earwax would flow out of his ear as well. So to prevent that, he packed his ear with cotton. But he did not attach this cotton to his body. So it was in his ear, but it wasn't attached. So the Gemara says, V'chalukin alov chaverov. And his friends disagreed with his practice. His friends thought that he was doing the wrong thing because he should have attached the cotton to his ear. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yanai nafik lu lekarmelis. Rabbi Yanai did the same thing. Rabbi Yanai did the same thing. And Rabbi Yanai ultimately, again, had cotton in his ear, non-attached, and went out into a carmelis. Now, let's remember again, a carmelis, as we've seen before, is an area which resembles Rishus Harabim. In other words, it has elements of a public domain, but it does not really satisfy the criteria, ultimately, again, of a public domain. So the Gemara says, V'chalukin alav kol doro, and his entire generation disagreed with his practice. The Gemara says, V'hatani by Cheskel, v'huka shekasha la ba'azna. But in reality, right, how were they able to go out this? In other words, Rabbi Yochanan, how was it that you were able to walk into the Beis Medrash without the wad of cotton attached to your ear? Meaning it's a pretty explicit Gemara. The Gemara says you can go out with cotton in your ear, but it has to be attached to the body, to which the Gemara says very interesting. Lo kashya hadim mahadik, hadalo mahadik. This is actually very interesting. That ultimately, again, apparently the Gemara feels, or Rabbi Yochanan felt, that if the cotton is very tightly packed into the ear, that's ki'ilu, that is as if it is attached and tied to the body. Whereas the only time that we require the cotton to actively be tied to the body is when? Is halacha l'maisa, under a circumstance where it's not tightly packed. But if it is tightly packed, then einachinami, that is fine. Look at Rashi, hadim hadik. Rabbi Yochanan hayat tachov ba'azno yafe. Rabbi Yochanan packed the cotton in his ear very tightly. Umahadik v'lo ba'ik shira. Udrayin bar Yecheskel b'delo mahadik. So also Rashi points out that Rayin bar Yecheskel, who went out with cotton into the Carmelis, that's the reason why everybody disagreed with this practice, was because it wasn't tightly packed. Okay, so we'll say, so therefore the Gemara explains, quite interesting, so it turns out that in order to go out with a wad of cotton in the ear, either it has to be actively tied to the body or tightly packed. But if it's just loosely packed in the ear, one would not be permitted to go out with that on Shabbos out of concern that if it falls out, one may inadvertently come to pick it up and carry it Dalet Amis in Rishus Harabim. Good. So the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, okay, so the Gemara goes weiter. Bepilpal ubegal gamelach. So next thing the Mishnah said is that halacha l'maisa, a person could go out with pilpel. Pilpel is ginger, right? Or pepper. Pepper, right? Peppercorns or some type of spice. And gal gamelach means a cube of salt. So a person could go out with these items in their mouth on Shabbos. Pilpel, why would a person chew on peppers? So we'll say apparently this was like the Mishnaic Listerine strips, right? So you'd go ahead and you'd put a piece of pepper in your mouth, and that would go ahead and neutralize bad breath. What about the salt? Gilgal melach. Why the cube of salt? Lidarshini. Rashi says over here, darshini choli hashinayim. Choli hashinayim. So Dr. Elman will tell us if, in fact, from a dentist perspective, salt has any positive impact. But again, I will say, remember, I just want to point out, whenever you see Chazal speaking about medicine, so of course, remember again, medicine is always reflective of what they knew in their time. So I guess apparently a person had tooth disease or tooth discomfort of some kind. I guess maybe if you have a mouthful of salt, you forget about anything else that's bothering you. Right? Just makes something else bother you more, and you forget about the thing that bothers you less. Okay, good. So the point over here is, now this is actually very interesting, because remember, this happens to touch on another discussion, which is the notion of refuah on Shabbos. So remember again, we spoke about before that in general, one is not permitted to engage in forms of medicinal healing on Shabbos, lest one come to grind herbs. But remember, the exception to this rule is that if you do things that look like normative acts of consumption, even if your kavanah is for medicinal healing, it'll be okay. So even though both say, so we know, by the way, because there are other examples like Gemara, that people would suck on salt cubes. So because of that, again, it doesn't have an overt display of medicinal healing, and therefore halacha l'maisa, it is okay. Goes weiter. So say, or anything else that a person would normally chew on, right? Anything else that a person would normally suck on, will put it in their mouth. You could also go out with it on Shabbos. The Gemara says, for example, zangvila. So zangvila is ginger, or inami dartsuna, cinnamon. So it would be common that people would chew on ginger, people would chew on cinnamon. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, you can go ahead and put these things in your mouth and go out with them on Shabbos as well. So the Gemara goes weiter. Shein tosebes, shein shalzav, Rebbe matir, v'chachamos. So what's a very interesting case? Similarly, again, shein tosebes means a person has a false tooth. So a person has a false tooth that's made of gold. So what's the halacha? Rebbe says you can go out with it on Shabbos, and the Chachamim say you can't go out with it on Shabbos. So we'll say this is very interesting. Rabbi Zera, lo shana ela shalzav. The machlokes in Rabbi and the Chachamim is only with a gold tooth. Second wide line on Samech Hemed Aleph. Aval b'shal kesef. But if we're talking about over here a false tooth made of silver, divrei hakol mutter. Everyone agrees that it is mutter. Now, both say we're going to see two different versions in Rashi about the understanding of this machlokes. Look at Rashi lo shanu. Rashi says, "The chachamim osrim ela shalzav shemashuna b'mara mishar shinayim v'dilma mevazila v'shakla la b'yadei umatne." So, we'll say in the first version of Rashi, the reason why the rabbis prohibit, the Rabbanan prohibit a person from walking out with a gold tooth on Shabbos is why a gold tooth clearly stands out. It clearly stands out. So what's the concern? What were the Chacham concerned about? That a woman's going to... Now again, this is woman or man. This is not gender specific. A person's going to go out with their gold tooth on Shabbos and they're going to feel self-conscious about it because someone is going to go ahead and make a comment. So what might they do? They will pull it out, right? Pull it out and end up holding it and end up inadvertently carrying it on Shabbos. So that concern only applies to a gold tooth, because a gold tooth is very overt, right? Is very noticeable. A silver tooth blends in much more. Once you say to yourself, a silver tooth blends in much more. Supposed to remember again, dental care in the times of the Mishnah is obviously very different. So the notion that we have today of like, oh, a beautiful bright white smile, let's say that's Baruch Hashem thanks to dental advances and dental care that we have today. Bipashtos, right? So you see from here, what does the Gemara say? If a person was wearing a silver tooth, that blended in with the rest of their mouth, which tells you a lot about what tooth care was in the times of the Mishnah, that a grayish smile was much more common. So we'll say, so according to this version, the reason the Chachamim don't allow you to go out with a gold tooth is because it's noticeable. A person may become self-conscious about it, and then you may come to pull it out and end up carrying it. But with a silver tooth, everyone agrees it's not a problem. Tayin Amiyachi, we have a brayso that supports this. B'shal kasef divrei hakol muter. With a silver tooth, everyone agrees you could go out. B'shal zav, Rebbe matir v'chachamosin. But with gold, ultimately Rebbe says that it's mutter, and the Chacham say that it's asur. Now, both say, now look at Rashi. So look at that second Rashi of Shal zav. So Rashi says, Shedom l'shar shinem divrei hakol muter lashon rabosai. So both say, so you see in that Rashi v'li nira. Rashi now gives another interpretation, and he says, "V'li nira taima de shalzav mishum de chashiva va'asi la'achuye or la'achvaye lekach aser aval shal kesef lo chashiva v'lo asi la'achvaye." We'll say, now watch this. Rashi up until now was quoting the opinion of his teachers, but Rashi says, you know what? I think the pshat is, and this is what we're going to go with. Rashi says, I think that the reason why the Rabbanan felt a gold tooth was problematic was why. Because a person feels that a gold tooth is very chashiv. So what could happen? Imagine the scene. I'm with Shabbos. I've got my brand new gold tooth. Right? Chaim, my uncle, says, "Hey, nice gold tooth." I said, "Sure, you bet." I yanked that out. I said, "You want to see it?" right? So Rashi says that ultimately, again, that really the concern of a gold tooth is that a person is going to take it out and end up showing it to his friend. Much like before we saw the concern about wearing certain types of jewelry, is that ultimately a woman may take it off and show it to her friend. A gold tooth was chashiv, and I may take it out and show it to my friends. We'll say it's the opposite over here. You see, in the Rashi, according to my Rebbeim, Rashi's my Rebbeim thought the concern over here was a person will become self-conscious about the gold tooth, may come to take it out to hide it, and therefore may end up carrying it to Allah Sarabim. Rashi says, I don't think that's the concern. I think the concern over here is that a gold tooth is chashiv. A person may come to take it out to show it to their friend, and then may end up inadvertently carrying it Dalid Amis in Rishos Harabim. Now, both you're going to see why, according to Rashi, Rashi's version makes even more sense. Now, both say so that would be the logic of the Rabbanon. Now, on the flip side, a silver tooth is not so chashiv. So a silver tooth, one is not going to come to go ahead and take out and end up carrying. So halacha l'maisa, the concern ultimately is what? Let's go with the second version of Rashi. The concern regarding a gold tooth is that since it's chashiv, one may want to show it to their friends, end up taking it out of their mouth and carrying it dalet ames in rishus harabim. So watch this, Rabbi. So therefore, the Gemara says as follows: Amar Abaye, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, kulu svira lahu, dechol midi demigna be lo asiya la asuye. Rabbi said, listen to this. So comes along Abaye, and Abaye says, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar all subscribe to the same concept, which is what? Something that is quote unquote disparaging for a person, or really degrading for a person to take out and show. A person is not going to take it out and show it. So the Gemara says, you'll see what this means just one. Rabbi had Amar. So we'll say, now let's go back for a second. Now we understand Shitas Rebbe. So let's focus for just a moment over here. The Machlokis Rebbe and the Rabbanon is in a case where a person is wearing a gold tooth. Right? The Rabbanon were concerned that what? Let's go with second version of Rashi. The Rabbanon were concerned that halacha l'maisa, a person's going to take out the gold tooth, show it to their friend, because the gold tooth is chashiv. What does Rebbe hold? Rebbe holds, Rebbe say, taking out a tooth is something that is generally considered to be repulsive, right? Especially doing it in a public sphere. Rebbe holds generally a person's not going to do something that doesn't look nice, right? Yanking your molar out to go ahead and show your friend, right? Hey, look at my new tooth, right? Generally, that's not something that people do, right? Even if you run out of stuff to talk about, generally people don't do that, right? You'd rather suffer the awkward silence than take out your dentures, right? And show your brand new dentures. So Rebbe holds, we're not concerned that a person is going to take out something and carry if it's something that generally is degrading for them. So that's why Rebbe allows, even in the case of a gold tooth, we're just not concerned that a person is going to take it out because it's degrading for a person. Rabbi Eliezer, Desanya, Rabbi Eliezer, Polter bikovelas ubetlucha shel plaita. We had this last week, that if a woman is wearing a kovelas, remember again, kovelas is a spice pouch, or tzluchas shel plaiton, which is a flask of balsama. Remember again, why would a woman wear these things, or any person wear these things? To cover up body odor. So we're not concerned that a person is going to take them off, show it to their friend, and end up carrying it daled amas. Why? Because remember, I'm wearing this because I have body odor. It would be degrading for me to take it off. Rabbi Shimon Elazar, the Sanya, Klal Amar Rabbi Shimon Elazar, Koshu lamata min asafka yotzebo. Lamala min asafka in a yotzebo. And Rabbi Shimon Elazar said that a woman could go out with any accessory that is worn underneath the hat. But we're concerned about any accessory that's worn above the hat. Why? Because if it's beneath the hat, then in order for a woman to access it and to show it, she would have to take off her hat. We assume that it's degrading for a woman to uncover her hair in public, to take off her hat in public, and therefore we're not concerned that she is going to come to do that. So the Gemara says that these three opinions all subscribe to the same basic idea, which is that a person is not going to do something that is degrading, and therefore we're not concerned that they're going to take off something come to carry. So in Rebbe, it's the case of the gold tooth. We're not concerned that a person is going to take out their tooth in the public domain to show it to their friend, even if it's a beautiful brand new gold tooth, because that's degrading for the individual. Second opinion, Rabbi Eliezer, a woman's not going to come to remove the spice pouch or the flask of balsam oil, because she wears that in order to mask body odor. So she's not going to take that off in order to show it to someone else. And lastly, Reb Shimon Elazar, that a woman, we're not worried about any accessories that a woman wears underneath her hat, because to take that out and show it to her friend would cause her to have to take off her hat, and that would be degrading for her in the public domain. Good. So I will say, so therefore the Gemara just points out that is indeed, by the way, how the halacha paskins, which is just interesting. Taking a step back now to the teeth, is that halacha lemaisa, the only concern is really regarding a gold tooth. So again, according to the Chachamim, ultimately the concern was that he or she may come to take out that tooth and ultimately show it to their friend. Rebbe says in general, halacha lemaisa, we're not concerned that a person is going to take out a tooth to show it to their friend. But when it comes to a silver tooth, everyone agrees that halacha lemaisa, you can wear it out on Shabbos. Beautiful. Says the Mishnah. Yotze b'sela shalatzinis. Ultimately, again, you could go out with a seller, and I will say now, we'll see what a tzinis is, but sela, is a coin. You can go out on Shabbos with a coin that is on a tzinis. Okay, well, again, like I said, we'll have to see that. Tzinis means mefarish b'gimara. We'll see what it means. Habanos kitanos yotzos bechutin avafilu b'kismin shebazneim. Young girls, we actually saw this quoted before. Young girls could go out with chutin, with strings in their ears, or kismin, or splinters. So we'll say, Rashi points out there something very interesting. Habonos ketanos shemenakvos ozneim vein osin ezarm ad sheyigdalu v'noslin chutin oksamim b'ozneim shlo yistmu ozneim. So this is actually very interesting. Just a fascinating, societal insight. What they used to do is they would pierce the ears of young girls, but girls wouldn't get earrings until they were older, which is very interesting. So I guess they would pierce the ears when they were young, so the child doesn't recognize the pain as much, or is not as cognizant, or forgets about it. So they pierce the ears when they were young, but you didn't get earrings until you were more mature. But how do you make sure that the hole doesn't close up? So they would put ribbons, and young girls would wear ribbons in their ears. That was their form of earrings, or splinters, right? Pieces of wood. But again, so it's just interesting. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, the Mishnah says that the girls could go out with, so you could go out either with the sela, with the coin on the tzinis, we don't know what the tzinis is yet, or with the ribbons in the ear, So we'll say, again, the assumption is, why can you go out with these things, with ribbons in the ear, or the splinters? Because, again, a girl's not going to take these out because she doesn't want the hole in the ear to close up. Aravios yotzos reulos. So let's listen to this question. Look at Rashi. Aravios yotzos reulos. Aravios nashim Yisraelis sheba'arav. So Jewish women in Arabian countries can go out reulos. Rashi says, derech Aravios, because the Arab women, lios mu'utafos roshan upnein chutz min ha'inayim. V'kari le'belashna Aravi reulos hainu haraulos d'chsev gabi tachshit inashim sefer Yeshaya. So this is fascinating. So the women in Arabian countries would walk out essentially with a burqa, right? Everything would be covered except their eyes. Notice, I want to be clear. This was never a Jewish form of dress. This was an Arab form of dress. But women who lived in Arab countries would dress this way as well. So what the Mishnah is telling me is that a Jewish woman could go out with her burqa on Shabbos. But I just want to be clear about this. I just want to be very clear. This was never a Jewish form of dress, right? Judaism does not require this type of dress, even for the most adherent of modesty standards. But what it's saying is, women who lived in foreign countries dressed in accordance with the modes of foreign countries. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, if a woman was living in an Arabic country and they were wearing burqas, she could go out with a burqa as well on Shabbos. Similarly, umadios perufos, so we'll say, listen to this. So madios, Rashi says, Noshem Yisrael Sheba Madai. So we'll say, so similarly, Jewish women who were living in Madai, perufos, Shema afos betalis v'tola retzua b'svasa achas keneged tzavara u'b'svasa shenis korechas even o egos v'kosheres haretzua b'krach v'inatas. Listen to this. So in Madai, the way the women used to dress was they would wear a cloak, and what they would do is as follows. One part of the cloak would be tied this way. The other part of the cloak, the edge of the cloak would be tied around a stone or a nut that was placed over here. That's how they would do. So they would have like instead of a button, they would use a stone or a nut, and they would go ahead and wrap the cloak around that. So the Mishnah, you'll see why this is important. So the Mishnah is saying halacha l'maisa. So the median women, right, the Madai women could go out wearing that type of cloak as well. So the Gemara says, in truth is the chol adam. Now the truth is, again, if a woman wants to wear a burqa, somewhere else, she can wear a burqa somewhere else, or she wants to tie a cloak like this somewhere else. Rather, the Gemara says, the Chacham were just giving examples in accordance with the way people dressed in different locales. So what the Mishnah is saying over here, look at Rashi for just a moment. Not yet, I'm sorry. So, however, the Gemara says, so a woman, I will say now, porefes means she could tie the edge of her cloak on a stone or on a nut or on a coin, as long as she does not do this lechatchila on Shabbos. Now, the Gemara is going to struggle to figure out what exactly that means, because the Mishnah just said before, I will say, the concept of porefes means taking the edge of a cloak and anchoring it onto something else that is attached to the garment. So if you could imagine, you could have a nut, or you could have a button, or you could have a coin that all act as a button. You take the edge of the cloak and you tie it around that area so that it doesn't fall off. So we'll say, the Gemara, we already see, by the way, an inherent contradiction in the Mishnah, because the Mishnah just said before that there's no problem with that practice, and on the Mishnah just said you shouldn't do that lechatchila on Shabbos. So we'll have to reconcile that. But I will say, but for our purposes, bottom line is what you begin to see is that halacha l'maaseh, anything that is considered to be a normative accessory or a normative form of dress, even if to one person it looks excessive. So, for example, to woman A, the burqa looks excessive. But since it is a form of dress, therefore, technically speaking, one could go out with it on Shabbos. For woman A, the parefes, the going ahead and tying the cloak around the button, looks excessive. But since it is a normative form of dress, therefore, halacha l'maisa, a person could go out like that on Shabbos. Okay, let's analyze. So says the Gemara, might sinis. So the first case of the Mishnah was that a person could go out on Shabbos with a sela, with a coin, on their tzinis. Might sinis. What's a tzinis? Bas ara. It means an injury. An injury. So the Gemara says, Bas ara. Makash hitachas parsa haragel. V'kosher ba. Sela l'rafua. Ultimately, again, so what happens? So a person has an injury, and an injury ultimately again a person has an injury on their foot, and they would put a coin underneath the wound for medicinal purposes. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. Look at Rashi. So we'll say if you have some type of injury on your foot, you would tie a coin onto the injury for medicinal purposes. Says the Gemara, why a coin? If you want to say it's just because the coin is hard, and tying any hard surface to the wound is beneficial to the wound, why don't you use an earthenware shard? Why does it have to be a coin? Let it be an earthenware shard. Rather, it must be because of the shuksa. Rashi says shuksa lachluches hayotzim min hakesef. So apparently silver sweats. There's moisture that comes off of silver. It's the moisture of the silver that is beneficial for the wound. Well, if that's the case, la'avid letasa. Just use a piece of silver. Why do you need a coin? Or why does it have to be a coin of silver? Just let it be a piece of silver. Ela mishum sursa. Rather, it must be because of what? It must be because that the coin has an image on it. And it's the image which kind of extends into the wound that goes ahead and is beneficial. If that's the case, le'avid lepolsa. Go ahead and fashion a coin out of wood. Let there be some type of image on the wooden coin, and that should be good enough. Rather, you see from here that all of this is beneficial for the wound. Or what does the coin contribute? The coin contributes all of these things. Number one, it's silver, so it sweats. Number two, it has the image. And number three, that it's hard. So because a silver coin has alamailis, right, all of the benefits, therefore, ultimately, again, it was placed on a wound on Shabbos. So therefore, what the Mishnah is telling me is as follows. That halacha l'maisa, I can go out with this item tied on my foot on Shabbos. And again, there's no concern that a person is going to go ahead and come to go ahead and remove it on Shabbos since it is serving the wound. Good. Says the Gemara. So it's a very interesting discussion here. So girls could go out with the strings, right, with the ribbons in their ear on Shabbos. And again, remember, so what was the point? You would pierce the ears of the girls when they were young, but they wouldn't get earrings until they were older. So this way, again, the ribbons kept the hole open, and ultimately went ahead and would go ahead and keep the holes open, and therefore there's no concern the girls are going to take it out because they want to keep the holes open. Says the Gemara, Avur de Shmuel, lo shavek lo laban say dinafik bechutin. So we'll say the father of Shmuel did not allow his daughters to go out with the strings in their ears on Shabbos. Furthermore, v'lo shavik lehu ginoin gabi hadadi, he would not let his daughters sleep in the same bed with each other. V'avid lehu mikvaos b'yomei Nisan, and he would make for them mikvaos in Nisan. Again, we'll explain each of these things, and mats for immersion in the Euphrates in the river during Tishrei. So we'll say, we'll explain all of this. So Rashi just pointed out of it before we begin to get into the cases. Rashi says, "Mikvaos b'yom Nisan, shamay mechunasan, osamach lenar, mamshich lesocha meinar v'tuval hasham." So it says we're going to see what the father of Shmuel felt was Yomei Nisan, which is right after the rainy season, or really right towards the end of the rainy season. He would make for them mikvaos, right, an actual pool of water. On Tishrei, he would allow them to immerse in the Euphrates, but he would go ahead and give them mats so they could stand on mats so that their feet wouldn't sink into the mud. And we'll say we'll explain all of this. So let's go case by case. So the Gemara says, "Lo shavek luhu yotzos bechutin." So you would not allow them to walk out with threads, with threads in their ears. Right, with ribbons in their ears on Shabbos. But our Mishnah says that girls can do that. So So apparently Shmuel's father's daughters, right, Shmuel's sisters, right, ultimately again had beautiful colored ribbons. So the concern was that because they were pretty colored ribbons, what will happen? Their friends are going to see them. They're going to end up taking it out and showing it to their friends. So the Gemara said, "Lo shavik lo ginoin gabi adadi." Why would the father of Shmuel not allow his single daughters to sleep in the same bed with each other? Lema mesele Rav Huna. Perhaps it supports the view of Rav Huna. What did Rav Huna say? Dam Rav Huna, nashim hamasololos zubazu amud beis psulos likahuna. So we'll say, now go back to Amud Aleph for just a moment. He says, nashim hamasololos, Rashi says, mitach techos, or metachechos mishum taivas tashmish. So we'll say what the Gemara is referring to over here is as follows. So Rav Huna says, what happens if women engage in homosexual behavior? So we'll say, so what kind of homosexual behavior? So let's say women rub each other in order to go ahead and gratify one another. So halacha l'maisa, Rav Huna says that, so we'll say this is actually very interesting because on a technical level, the only Isser Da'oraisa as it applies to homosexual behavior is Mishkav Zachar. Mishkav Zachar is male homosexual behavior because under that situation there could be penetration. But Lamaisa, if two women were to engage in homosexual behavior, so on a technical level, that doesn't fall under the umbrella of the biblical prohibition because there's no Maisa Tashmish, right? Because there's no penetration that occurs. So Rav Huna is talking about over here is Noshinam Sololos Zubazu, are women who rub each other in order to feel some type of sexual gratification. So Rav Huna says that this counts ultimately again as prohibited sexual behavior, and therefore Amud Beis psulos lekahuna. They will be puzzled to the kahuna. Now, this is actually very interesting. Rashi says they're psulos lekahuna lekohen gadol. Now Rashi says over here that who would they be puzzled to? They'd be puzzled to a kohen gadol. Delo havya bisula shlema, because such a woman who engages in homosexual behavior with another woman is not a besula shlema. They both say, this is very interesting, because in general we assume in halacha, either you are a besula or you're not a basula, right? So it's interesting that Rashi has this notion of a basula shalema. She's not a complete basula. The afagav the kohen gadol biyomei lohava hoil v'derech znus chashivlei lav orach ara. So as I say, interestingly enough, apparently such a woman who had engaged in homosexual behavior with another woman would be fit for a regular kohen, but not for a kohen gadol. Interesting, not for a kohen gadol. Why not for a kohen gadol? Because she's not a basula shlema. Now Rashi just points out, by the way, by the time we're talking about by the days of Shmuel's father, there is no kohen gadol, right? There is no Beis Hamikdash. But nevertheless, he felt that it was inappropriate for girls. So he was nervous that if his single daughters all slept in the same bed together, ultimately again they may engage in this type of behavior. Now look at Tosas for just a moment. Tosas psulas lakuna, perish lakuna gidol, delab psula shlema, va'avagad b'kohen gadol mei Shmuel lo hava machmer v'yesh mefarshim d'mishum zona upsulos af lakohen hedjo. So Tosas says no. Shabbos said there's two different things over here. See, if a woman is not a basula, she may not marry a kohen gadol. Right, she may not marry a kohen gadol, but she can marry, technically speaking, still a kohen hedyot. The issue over here, says Tosas, is one of zona. A zona is a woman who engages in any illicit behavior. It could very well be that even if a woman is technically a basula, but if she engaged in immoral behavior, she may still be classified as a zona. If she's a zona, then halacha lemaisa, she can't marry even a kohen hedyot. That designation would have applied even during the days of Shmuel's father, where there was no longer a kohen gadol, but there was certainly kohanim gedolim. But there was certainly an issue of zona. So we'll say, just interesting machlokes Rashi Tosas. But here's what we know: Shmuel's father did not want his daughter sleeping in the same bed, out of fear that they may come to engage in some type of illicit activity with one another. According to Rashi, the concern would only be lagabi a kohen gadol, because the most that this activity could lead to is that she's not a full besula, whatever that means. She's not a complete besula, lagabi marrying a kohen gadol. Tosa says no, actually engaging in this type of behavior could give a woman a designation of a zona, and if she's a zona, then halacha lemaisa, she's not even permitted to marry a kohen hedyot. To which the Gemara says, actually, that's not it. That's not what he was concerned about. He says, lo savar ki echid lo lilfan gufan luchra. What he was concerned about, say, is he was concerned that if his daughters always got used to sleeping next to someone else, they may ultimately, again, become desirous of sleeping with a man, having another body in the bed, even at a younger age. So in order that they shouldn't be a cousin, they should be okay with sleeping alone, and therefore they shouldn't seek out male companionship earlier than necessary. Therefore, he had them sleep in separate beds. Okay. So the Gemara says as follows. So far, number one, we see he didn't allow them to go out with ribbons in their ears, even though the Mishnah said you can. Why not? Because halacha lemaisa, what happened? They would go out with colored ribbons. So because of that, again, he had a concern that they would take out the ribbons and show it to their friends. He wouldn't have them sleep in the same bed, again, either because he was concerned about their future ability to go out and marry Kohanim, or simply because he didn't want them to get used to sleeping with another person in the bed, because he was concerned that it may propel them to seek out male companionship earlier than appropriate. Next, va'avidu mikvah b'yomei Nisan. He would make for them a mikvah during the rainy season. So we'll say, now watch this. Mitra b'ma'arava, when it rained in the west, Eretz Yisrael, Sada Rabba Pras. The Euphrates River was the great witness to the rains of Eretz Yisrael. In other words, we'll say, when it would rain in Eretz Yisrael, what would end up happening was that the Euphrates River would become swollen with rainwater. Now watch this. The Gemara says, Savar shelo yirbu hanotfin al hazochlin. Now we'll say this is very interesting. For a mikvah, you could use two different bodies of water. You could use a flowing river, or you could use a mikvah. Now when we say mikvah, what we mean is a standing body of water, rainwater. So we'll say rainwater could only be used for a mikvah when it is a standing body of water. You cannot have flowing rainwater. Flowing water only works if it's river water. So we'll say, you hear this distinction? Rainwater could be used in a mikvah when it's collected in a standing pool. Flowing water only works when it's river water, which comes from the source of the river and not from rain. So now you understand something that's happening over here, which is amazing. So the Gemara says, so therefore, Avua de Shmuel felt like this. In Nisan, which is the end of the rainy season, the Euphrates was swollen because of rainwater. Therefore, the father Shmuel was concerned that the majority of the water in the Euphrates was rainwater, but it cannot be used as a mikvah. Why not? Because it was flowing. So what would he do for his? So it's very simple. It's a very simple fix. What he would do is he would channel off some of the water from the Euphrates River into a standing pool. Therefore, as long as it's a standing pool, therefore what? That's majority rainwater, and Allah Lamaisa that works as a mikvah. So essentially, what it's saying is Nisan at the end of the rainy season, he would not let his daughters use the Euphrates as a mikvah because he was concerned that the majority of the Euphrates, which was flowing water, was rainwater. But flowing rainwater cannot be used as a mikvah. So instead, he just made them a mikvah, standing water, to be able to be used at the end of the rainy season. We're going to see, however, again in Tishrei, which was already the end of the summer, so the water in the Euphrates ultimately was what? Was river water. But what did he do? He made the mats. What was the concern with the mats? Because apparently the Euphrates had a muddy bottom. So the concern was that if a woman went into the Euphrates to immerse herself, her feet would sink in, be covered by mud, and the mud would serve as an interposition, right? As a chatzitza, ultimately again between herself and the water. So he made them mats so they could stand on the mats, and therefore their feet wouldn't sink into the mud, wouldn't be a chatzitza for the mikvah. Pligi the Shmuel. And this argues on Shmuel because what does Shmuel say? Damar Shmuel, Nara mikifa mivrach. Shmuel says in general, rivers are always fed from their source, which means rivers always have a majority of river water and are never a majority of rainwater. So Shmuel himself holds that halacha l'maisa, the Euphrates could always be used for immersion because halacha l'maisa, the Euphrates always has a majority of river water, never a majority of rain water. So the Gemara says, "Upliga didei didei," but Shmuel himself contradicts himself because Shmuel says, "The Amar Shmuel, eina mayim nitarin bezochlin ela pras biyomei tishrei bilvad." So Shmuel says that eina mayim mosar bezochlin, that flowing water does not have the ability to serve as a mikvah except for the Euphrates River during Tishrei, which sounds like that even Shmuel himself holds that halacha l'maisa, earlier on in the season, one must be concerned that the Euphrates River is primarily made up of rainwater, and therefore would be invalid ultimately for immersion purposes. So what comes out over here is something very interesting. So what comes out over here is, first of all, the license for the girls to go out with ribbons in their ears apparently are only simple ribbons. But halacha l'maisa, if they have any nicer ribbons, right, like colored ribbons, then there would be a concern that halacha l'maisa they may take it out to come to show their friends. Furthermore, again, we see ultimately again that one has to be nervous about, if one is immersing in a river, about muddy bottoms, because otherwise that could serve as a chatzitza for the feet. And also we learn another very important halacha legabe mikvos, that rainwater works as long as it is collected in a standing pool of water. If you have flowing rainwater does not work to create a mikvah. River water works if it's flowing as long as it is river water and not rain water, which is, I will say, why it's not so pashut just to simply use any river for a mikvah. One has to understand how that river is fed. But that is halacha l'maisa, the Gemara is quoting over here. So standing water, right, rainwater is usable as a mikvah as long as it's standing, not flowing. River water is fine if it's flowing, as long as what? As long as l'maisa it's river water and not flowing rainwater. Beautiful. Says the Gemara. Porefes ala even. So we'll remember again, the Mishnah already just seemed to pose an inherent contradiction because the Mishnah said, first part of the Mishnah said, that a woman could go ahead and use like a nut or even a coin as a button to wrap her shawl around so it doesn't fall off. But then the end of the Mishnah said, the lechatchila, a woman should not do so on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, I don't understand which one is it. So the Sefer said lechatchila, you can't tie the edge of your shawl around the nut or around the coin to be used as a button. But the Reisha said you could. Amar Abaye, Seifa asa'an lematbeya. So Abaye said, interesting, at the end of the Mishnah is talking about a coin. That halacha l'maisa, you should not use a coin to tie the end of your shawl on the chatchila on Shabbos. Why? It makes sense. Because a coin is muktzah. So even though, again, usage of the coin as a button should technically be permitted because you're using the coin in a mutter way. But l'chatchila, you should not use a coin as the button to wrap your shawl around on Shabbos. Baya baye. So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says Salamat Beya, the lav bar tiltuhu aval even shik tzilakach roi letiltul. So we'll say, so ideally what it means is, l'chatchila, on Shabbos you should not use a coin as the button to wrap your shawl around, because a coin is muktzah, but a rock, which was set aside for this purpose on Erev Shabbos, ultimately again can be used. So baya baye, what's an interesting shayla? Isha, ma'u shetharim etifraf ala egos, lahotzi lebna katan b'Shabbos. Well, so listen to this case. Let's say a woman wants to bring her child a nut, right? The child is in Rishus Harabim, and the woman is in Rishus Hayachid. So she can't carry a nut from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Hayachid. From Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, what does she do? She's wearing a shawl. She has a great idea. I'm going to use the nut as a button to tie my shawl around. So I'm going to wear out the nut into Rishus Harabim and give it to my child there. Can a woman do that on Shabbos? So the Gemara says, Tibari lemand amar ma'arimin, Tibari lemand amar ein ma'arimin. So we'll say, this we're going to see this sugya later on in a number of weeks. If you look at Rashi, Tibari lemand amar plukta b'chol kisvei HaKodesh, lovish kol mash yuchal lilbosh, David Rabbi Meir, va'afilu asara chalukim ze al ze. Rabbi Yossi Omer Shmona Asar Kilim Kederach Shu Lovish Bechos. We'll say this is very interesting. We're going to see this case about what happens halacha l'maisa if a fire breaks out in one's home. So if a fire breaks out in one's home, there's a machlokes as to what you are permitted to save under those circumstances. So we're going to see. One opinion says you could put on as many layers of garments as you want in order to go ahead and save as much clothing as you want. You could do that, not a problem. Second opinion says, no, you could only wear the normal clothing you wear each and every day. So we'll say that's called ma'arim. So ma'arimin means you could put on as many layers of clothing as you want because it's called wearing, and you could save your clothing like that. So we'll say, so the shayla is like this. So listen to this. So the ma'arimin. So we'll say, according to the opinion who says that when there's a fire, you can wear out as many layers of clothing as you want. Why do we say that? Because Hassam di'ilo sharisle asil chabuye. Because we'll say we're concerned that in the case of the fire, if we don't let a person put on as many layers of clothing as they want, what's going to end up happening? They're going to end up putting out the fire. So we would rather you put on a whole bunch of layers of clothing, even though, again, that's not really a normative act of wearing, but at least it's not a direct carrying. That prevents you from putting out the fire, which is a real biblical prohibition. Aval hocha, but in the case of the woman who wants to carry the nut from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah through wearing it, ilo sharis, ilo asilafluke. We're not concerned if we tell her no. If we say if you can't use the nut as the button for your shawl, then halacha l'maisa she's not going to come to carry it. O dilma afil lemanda amar ein ma'arimin, or maybe according to the opinion who says that you can't do ha'arama, right? Bidleika hasam derechot sabachas. So we'll say the reason why the opinion who says that you can't wear extra clothing in order to save it from the fire is because I will say very often people who would sell clothing would often transport their merchandise by wearing multiple layers. That is a non-normative act of wearing, but it is a normative act of transport. Therefore, the second opinion says that by Shabbos, we do not allow you to wear multiple layers of clothing in order to save it from the fire. Why? Because that is a normative method of transport. Aval hocha ein derechot sabekach. But here, this is not the normative method of transport of a nut, to use it as a button to tie your shawl on. Ema shapir dami, then perhaps I would say it is permitted. Therefore, the Gemara says, teku. So they will say the Gemara leaves it as a teku, alocha lamaisa, not definitively answering whether or not the woman could wear out the nut in order to go ahead and give it to her child on Shabbos. So I will say, I will just tell you, the Shulchan Aruch, interestingly enough, comments on this case, quite fascinatingly, and the Shulchan Aruch writes as follows. The Shulchan Aruch says like this: Im haisa tzricha lahotzi egos livna, uparfa alav kedei lotzio. What's in mamish this case? A woman's in Rishus Hayachid, her kid's in Rishus Harabim. She wants to bring her child a nut. She can't carry it. There's no eruv, right? So what happens? She uses it as a button for her shawl, and she goes in and she wants to tie it around. So can't she take it out like that? So im haisa tzricha lahotzi egos livna, uparfa alav kedei lotzio. Im l'Rishus Harabim aser, v'im l'Karmelis mutter. So the Shulchan Aruch actually strikes an interesting balance. You cannot do this to transport a nut from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, which would be a daraisa. But you can do it to transport the nut from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis, which would only be a Dirabanan. So halacha lemaisa, using the nut as a button to get it from one domain to another, if it's only a rabbinic transference, Rosh Hashanah to Carmelis, you can do. But to go ahead and use the nut as a button, ultimately to take it from biblical, right, from Rosh Hashanah to Shram, biblical transference, halacha lemaisa, you cannot do that. Yeshkar Chabosai. We'll stop over here for today. And on a series that was mentioned in dedication, just a reminder, today is Mother's Day. So again, whether it's your wife or whether it's your mother, make sure to take the time to make a phone call, not an email, not a text, but mamish, a phone call to give hakaras hatov to women in our lives who are so incredibly important. We'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up with the Mishnah tomorrow. Wishing everyone a wonderful day. Shkoyach.